All right, I think we got it. All right, we got it. Welcome to this edition of Morgan You Asked For podcast. We got this technical difficulties out of the way. Trevor will not be with us tonight. He is working/traveling. So he texted me a little bit ago, not going to be able to make it, and that's okay. Lots to recap. I was finding, I believe I have in this great folder here are predictions from this fall. I just got to flip to it here. But first, let's recap the Super Bowl. And I want to read what Trevor wrote. Trevor did write a recap, and I'm just going to kind of read it. And it's a lot of good stuff here. And, next week when he's on here, he can elaborate a little bit. But, he talked about, I'm just going to read it here. Seahawks team getting too much hate with a question mark. They have a coach who isn't cocky or brash, a QB who's thankful and gracious for his opportunity. Star players aren't getting in trouble in the news or have to be at the center of attention. Isn't this what we're told the team is all about? The Seahawks team deserves more love. And I 100% agree with that. And it's one of the reasons, we named last week's episode kind of ho-hum Super Bowl, because they don't have the star power. They don't have the me guys. They got rid of DK Metcalf. They got rid of the me guy. Geno Smith has been in the news for different things. They got rid of him. Darnold's, struggled throughout his career until the last couple years. So, and him and Tom Brady are the only two ever to go 14 wins back-to-back seasons. He's a Super Bowl champ. He's the first quarterback in that 2018 class to get a Super Bowl. He was drafted, in that same class as Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, and he's got the ring. The others don't, because they are a team, and it's not just him, and it's not just quarterback paying all the money and can't pay everybody else. Now, they've got salary cap issues, just like everybody else does. Kenneth Walker, I believe, is a free agent. JSN, I believe, is a free agent. So they're going to have some decisions to make, and every team does. That's not just the Seahawks. But the game in general, give my recap of the game, was boring. And I heard somebody talk that, I think it was a guy from Circus Sports. He kind of predicted a 9-6 ball game. And he was right for three quarters. And then kind of the fourth quarter, both offenses made plays. And then obviously with the defensive touchdown as well. And then also, Trev did have the kicker as one of his picks for MVP, so he was close. And I text the group chat halfway through or three quarters through, is the kicker the MVP? Now, that was before, Walker kind of had two or three of his bigger runs and had the one called back, and he deserved it. But the kicker set an NFL or a Super Bowl record with 5 field goals. But the Seahawks were the best team. They were the better team. And that defense was unbelievable. There's no question about it. They made Drake May look just flat out not good. Chris Collinsworth, didn't come out and necessarily say it, but he was like, you could almost hear him say that he's just not playing good and he's just bad tonight. And not wrong. He wishes he could have that back, I promise. And but that is the NFL, and that is the Seahawks defense. And Mike McDonald, great coach, great defensive coach. That is what it's all about. All right. That is, I'm thinking I might have grabbed the wrong notebook. Might be in my other one. Maybe not. Let me flip right here. I thought I had it up, but guess not. Oh, here we go. I have it. Here we go. There's the college one. I know this is great radio here. All right, here we go. I got it. So we're going to go through our picks here. We've got in the AFC North, we both picked the Ravens. Obviously, we were wrong. In the South, we both picked Houston. Good there. The East, we both had the Bills. Now the Bills made the playoffs, but they did not win the East. And then the West, we had Kansas City, which also was wrong. NFC, Packers and Detroit were our picks, and the Bears won it, obviously. The South, Tampa Bay, that was wrong. Carolina won it. In the East, we had Philly and Washington were our picks. So there. And then in the West, I picked San Francisco, and he had Seattle. So he was correct. And San Francisco was right there and made the playoffs. Wild card, we both had Denver, so we were correct in getting them into the playoffs. We both had the Bengals in the playoffs, which obviously did not happen, so we were wrong there. Then I had the Steelers, and he had the Chargers. Both of them did make the playoffs. So we weren't completely wrong there. Excuse me there. And then Detroit and Philly were wild card picks. Ravens and Packers. And then Washington, and then the 49ers. So the 49ers and Packers, so and then the Rams. So Trevor had 2 of the 3, and I had 1 of the 3. So not so good. The final 4, we both had Kansas City, and then I had the Ravens, and he had Buffalo, so we were way off there. And then Philly and the Packers, and then we both had Detroit, so we were way off there. So we weren't very good when it came down to the final 4. And then the final 8, actually. And then the final 4, obviously, with none of the 8 being correct, obviously we were wrong. I had the Ravens in Detroit, and he had Buffalo and Detroit, and then I had the Ravens winning the Super Bowl, and he had Buffalo. So obviously we're not very good. It's always fun to go back and look at that. We're much better in college football, but there's less parity. That's what makes the NFL great. No one would have thought the Patriots, after winning 4 games last year, get to the Super Bowl. I think we both had Denver in the playoffs, but we did not have them being the number 1 seed overall. So that's what makes football and the NFL great in general. With the Super Bowl being over now, we moved into free agency will be coming, combine will be coming, draft will be coming. That is Trevor's wheelhouse. We're going to talk a lot about that. More games are coming overseas. I think they're going to Australia this year, which is a little bit different. And I think college football is going to London, not just, I think the Big 12 in general. I don't know. Somebody's going to, I think TCU and North Carolina are going to the Ireland game that Iowa State played in this last year. But I think somebody is going to London either this year or the year after in 2027. I saw them sign an agreement for that. So football is trying to get a little bit more worldwide, and that was also very evident with the Bad Bunny selection for halftime show. It was very good. Didn't understand a word he said, which is okay, but the visual part of it, and I think his message, as far as I know, was okay. After the game, I did go watch the other one on YouTube as well. It was fine. Different artists, different genres is what it is. They're both fine. They're both good. Nothing about each one. I do think there is a little bit of Apple produced that, and Apple is really promoting the AirPods that translate the music for you, translate language in general. So I think that was some of the reason maybe Bad Bunny was selected to choose that. Don't blame Apple. They are a company that is trying to sell products. So they want to, if you'd have been listening to your AirPods and listened to Bad Bunny, it'd have been good with the translation. I think we're good on football now. We're going to move now. I just want to make this here in Iowa today, and I know Coach Rick Heller was on Travis and Ross show, not this morning, but yesterday morning. I'm pretty sure they were leaving for Arizona to start playing baseball because college baseball season starts this weekend, which is amazing. And really in Iowa right now, this afternoon would have been fine to play baseball. And actually, I think next week Iowa did schedule a game, and he said that he's looking for a game next week. And I think I did see today that they're going to play UW-Platteville. But on a very sad news, they are all traveling south. Iowa Community College baseball team was involved in a crash today, and I do believe it has been reported now that one person unfortunately did die. Don't know who that is. Don't know if it's a player, coach, driver, manager. Doesn't matter. Definitely horrific situation, and then a bunch of other people were hurt as well. So it just stinks. But thoughts and prayers there. But then with everybody that, northern baseball teams are all traveling south for a couple of weeks over spring break, everything else like that, just to get some baseball in, because the season does start this weekend. So do want to talk about that, something that happened today. Next, I do want to talk college basketball. Start with the Hawkeyes. They just played tonight. They played early. I didn't realize that they were started like 4 or 5 o'clock here, which I understand it's out in Maryland, so it's an hour later out there. But unfortunately, they lost to Maryland, a team that had not beat a Quad 1 team, hadn't beat a team with a winning record, and had a losing record themselves. So Bennett Sturts, again, I think he had 30 points roughly, maybe a few more than that. He needs some help. Koch needs to hit some shots. Brendan Hessen came in, hit a couple, but just need a little bit more help from Sturts. It can't be – Sturts can't win it by himself. He's got to be your leader. He's probably got to be your leading scorer every night, but he needs somebody to help him and get over the top. And then that kid, I don't know the guy's name, from Maryland, had a really good night, had 24. I think it said career high and everything. So unfortunate downward game for the Hawks. I think they had won 6 in a row in the Big Ten, which, that's fine. The problem with that is that's a game, and we're going to talk about the Cyclones here in just a second. They're the same thing. I believe the Hawkeye stretch coming up is much more difficult. I think they got a Purdue and a Nebraska, which, speaking of Purdue and Nebraska, they played one heck of a basketball game the other night. Went to overtime, and Nebraska had a chance and got the ball in, and the guy slipped, and just kind of the way it went. But those are two really good basketball teams. You still have to play Nebraska twice, once at home and once in Lincoln. Purdue comes back to Carver Hawkeye. Need to probably get at least one of those 3, and it'd be really nice to get 2 of those 3. But it'll be a very difficult stretch for the Hawks. Need to get a couple more big-time wins to get yourself – I think the Hawks are in the tournament. You want to get off that 8-9 line. You don't want to play the number 1 seed in that second round. That's just – not that it never happens, but it's a very difficult situation to put yourself in, having to play the number 1 seed, trying to get to that Sweet 16. And that, for Hawkeye fans and the Hawks, that's just a monkey that is still on their back that they're trying. And I think they really do have a chance if everything goes the way I think it will. I don't think there'll be an 8 seed. They have a chance to get off that 8-9 line and then win 2 games in the tournament and get to that Sweet 16. First time since 1999, which is crazy to me, but that is the facts. Now let's move to the Cyclones. I believe they had won 5 in a row after that 2-game stretch at Kansas, at Cincinnati, and they flat out lay an egg last night at TCU and just play really bad. Gets back to Iowa State is at its best when it's forcing turnovers, getting out in the open court, making plays, and sharing the basketball. But they got back into the habit of one-on-one ball. 17 turnovers, I believe, is what they had. Lost the turnover battle, lost the turnover transition points. Joshua Jefferson, just way too many turnovers. And then run this kind of high screen, trying to get Monsilovic a shot towards the end, and the guy just made a great play and stole it, went down and dunked it, and essentially sealed it. And a couple fouls later, and they ended up losing by 7, but I think they were up 5 with 90 seconds left. And just, a couple turnovers and not really very many shots, good shots. Big guys got blocked 4 or 5 times. I was watching. I wasn't able to watch the entire game. I listened to some of it. I watched some of it in a gym. I was watching basketball. And then I got home for probably the last 15 minutes or so and watched it. But just too tentative down low. Got to go up and dunk it or laying in hard. We pump fake 2 or 3 times, then we go up, we get it blocked. What's frustrating to me, and this has been the Cyclones really forever, they will play games that they look like they can get to the Final Four, win a championship. They could be anybody in the country. But then they have games like Cincinnati, and they have games like last night at TCU that just shake your head and like, why? And then what that means is then you get the 2, 3, or 4 seeds in the tournament instead of the 1 seed. And then it makes it harder to get to the Final Four and to give yourself a chance. And teams like Duke and recently teams like Houston, and I think Arizona this year, we'll see. Teams like Florida overall and other teams, UConn, for the most, they don't lose to teams that aren't good. Arizona went to Fog Allen Monday night, played one heck of a basketball game and lost. That's okay. Top 10 team. Bill Self, 38-0 on Big Monday. 2 great teams. They played great. They just got beat. It's okay to get beat. But you can't get beat by teams that aren't very good or mediocre. And Iowa State does that every year to teams they shouldn't lose to. It's okay to lose to Arizona. It's okay to lose to Kansas. It's okay to lose to Houston. And most years, Texas Tech, one time, and BYU. If you go 18-game conference, you go 14-4, and you only lose to the top 4 teams or 4 out of the 5 if you're one of those top 4 teams, it's okay. But you can't lose to these teams that are 500 or just barely over 500 and expect to be that 2 seed, 1 seed, win the conference. And that's where they're just a little bit deficient. They are a great team, but when they don't play team basketball, they can get beat by anybody because they don't have a Darren Peterson, AJ DeBansa, the Fleming kid from Houston, the Bradley kid, I think it's Bradley from Arizona, that can just go get you a basket. Give him the ball, everybody get out of the way, and you go. Our closest to that is Jefferson, but he's not quite there. Because if they jump him, he's turnover prone. Monsilovich can't get his own shot. Lipsy's he's a great college basketball, but he's not. Those guys are all top 5 picks. That's what they don't have. They don't have the top 10 pick. Iowa does. Iowa has a guy, give it to Sturts and go. That's what the Cyclones don't have, and they haven't had. They haven't had since they had it when Pfizer. And that's when they were in the Elite 8 and had a chance to go to the Final Four and got beat by the national champion in a really close basketball game. They had that guy, and they had Tinsley. That's what they don't have. So, as we talk, is their ceiling the Elite Final Four? I don't know now. I thought it was. Ceiling probably was national champion, and it still is. I mean, they can play with anybody. They beat Purdue on the road in Mackey Arena by 20. You do that, you can beat anybody. But these stretches I already have lots of gray hair that gives me more gray hair. And I still not really going bald, but a little bit getting balder, I guess. That's what caused me to lose my hair is just the lack of, I don't know if it's focus, just want to, will. They just don't show up every night against the teams that they should beat. And I don't know if that's on the players or the coach. Oh, it's on everybody, actually, but I don't know who it's on. Then there's two other stories at Iowa State right now that are a little bit worrisome, just need some clarity that we don't know. And it falls on AD Jamie Pollard to answer these questions. And they might have legit answers, but they're just super secretive. That is one, they canceled the gymnastics season, citing not enough players, healthy and whatever. Well, the Big 12 came out and said there's not a certain number of players required to have a meet. So even if you had one healthy player and she wanted to do it, she could go do her thing. And then obviously, just like wrestling, where sometimes you forfeit a weight. I've seen it happen in college wrestling. I don't understand that either, but it is what it is. You can wrestle or you can go do gymnastics, but Iowa State canceled. So something I think fishy is going on with the gymnastics team. This is my belief. I have no thing. The players quit. I don't know if it's because coaching, facilities, something with the program. I have no idea. I would say the players are not hurt. I would say they quit. But they're not going to come out and say why. Now, we may learn why if the coach resigns or is fired. But then the other thing is gymnastics in college at Iowa State is a sport that is losing money hand over fist, which most programs in college do. The only one, there's really two, in some schools, three, and that third one is different at each school. At Iowa State, I would assume the only two programs that make money are men's basketball and football. I would say wrestling and women's basketball probably are close to even, but maybe not. And if they do make a little bit of money, okay. I haven't looked that far into it, but I would guess they lose money. You have to think about if they're having this much trouble with keeping players or just keeping them injured or healthy, whatever the situation may be. Is it time to close that program? Now, I believe Iowa State has the least amount of varsity sports you can to stay Division I. So if you would shut down gymnastics, you would have to bring another program back. And I think the program to start is a simple one, and that is women's wrestling. The sport is growing leaps and bounds in the state of Iowa and the surrounding states. I know Nebraska has big wrestling. The University of Iowa has women's wrestling. I know William Penn here in Oskaloosa has wrestling, women's wrestling, and there are schools around that have it. Now, I understand not every team in the country does, and it's not a full-blown NCAA tournament like the men's right now, but it's growing towards that way, and it will get there sometime in the future. I believe that. So I think this would be a good time to reevaluate the program and see if a different program might be better suited for Iowa State. Now, other schools, women's wrestling is not an option, and gymnastics might be the good choice. But for Iowa State, I think women's wrestling might be a better fit. So that would be my suggestion. Then the other one that came out is that Jimmy Rogers has still not signed his contract with Iowa State. Lots of reasons for that, maybe. Again, we don't know. Maybe it'll come out, maybe it won't. For it not to be signed right away is very common, but I would say a couple months in, maybe a little bit less common. Usually the biggest language situation that needs to be worked out in a contract that I've heard, again, I'm not in these and it might have nothing to do with this one, is how much are you going to pay me when you fire me without cause? And that's become the buyout. That's essentially what it is. Matt Campbell's buyout was very low. That's what he wanted. I don't know what Jimmy Rogers wants. I don't know what Iowa State is offering. That's what the lawyers and the agents figure out. So that, my assumption is the hiccup, but I don't know. Is there something else behind the scenes that we don't know? And he is getting paid. They don't sign a contract, but they sign a memorandum of agreement or something of that effect that says, yes, I will work, and I'm sure they're paying him, a base salary. And then once that contract signs, and that takes over. But it's just a little bit fishy, and some things that Jamie Pollard needs to address, get rectified, and then move forward and hopefully solve and help reassure Cyclone fans. Because here's what's happened over the last couple of weeks. We all got our season ticket renewals, and we got our Cyclone Club donation renewals. So those pieces, and football drives everything. We discussed that over and over here. They've had really good crowds. It's been full there essentially every game. Some games are attended more or less just by a few thousand here or there, but overall Iowa State the stadium has been full every game. New coach, lost the entire team. Just looking at the big picture, I'm going to assume there's going to be a few thousand people that don't renew their season tickets. They're not going to be as good. The whole team lost the whole team. And some people are going to be like, I'm out. They're not loyal to us. We're not loyal to them anymore. Now, that is, in my opinion, the wrong attitude. If you are a Cyclone, you're a Cyclone. Doesn't matter who the AD is. Doesn't matter who the players are. Doesn't matter who the coach is. Support the Cyclones. Cheer for the front of the jersey. Don't worry so much about the back of the jersey. Problem is, it's getting harder and harder to do that because the players come and go, and you can't learn them. You don't know we've not had to do this in 10 years. We've had stability here for 10 years at Iowa State, and the longest run of continued success that we've had in Cyclone football. I do think we take a step back. How big a step back, we're going to find out. We have no idea. No idea if these players are going to be great for the Cyclones next fall, or not so great. We have no idea. If you would have told me 2 years ago that Indiana in the next 2 years is only going to lose 2 games, get to the playoffs twice with Kirk Cignetti and James Madison players with a few handpicked guys, I would have said you're crazy. Now, do I think that's going to happen at Iowa State? Absolutely not. But we don't know. We truly don't know. Oklahoma State's in the same situation. They hired North Texas's coach. Their whole team left. He brought his team in from North Texas along with some other handpicked guys. And they might be really good. They might not be. We have no idea. And there's other teams out there. But just in general, the donations, the season ticket renewals need to continue at a high rate to keep the program going in the right direction. Because the TV money is getting more and more separation between the Big Ten and SEC and the Big 12 and the ACC. And Chi-Town is coming, but it's not there yet. And we're spending money on that. And hopefully that's not deterring from the rest of the athletic department. In the long run, that's going to make money. There are 2 concerts this summer. Luke Combs and Post Malone and Jelly Roll are coming. So that's 2 concerts that will make some money for the athletic department. There are rumblings of a 3rd. So they're trying. And I they know they need money. They know they've got to figure some things out up there at Ames. Starting next winter, next March or end of February, whenever it happens to be, they're having the boys basketball state tournament. That's another revenue driver for Iowa State. Good. Get people staying in the hotels, eating at the restaurants. And then obviously the Athletic Association is going to rent Hilton Coliseum, just like these concerts are renting Iowa State football stadium Jack Trice. So those, you just got to keep doing it over and over and over. And hopefully the TV rights and everything else continue to hopefully get a little bit better. We'll see. We don't know. I think in like 2030, so in 3.5 years, they're going to start negotiating again. I would like to see some more. There's something to getting everybody together and doing it more like the NFL instead of separate here, separate there. But the way it's going right now, I don't think that will happen. But it is what it is. So that's really all I have tonight, about 30 minutes, and that's usually go an hour, but there's two of us here. So, I talk a half hour, and Trevor talks a half hour, essentially. So usually when I go solo here, I go for about half hour. As always, thank you to those of you that watch and listen and like and subscribe and tell your friends and family. We really do appreciate it. And Trev and I both, we really like doing this. It's fun. It's just a 30 minutes to an hour release for us to talk sports. It's fun to do. We don't do it for anything but just fun and recreation and just talk. So we do appreciate everybody, but just help us out if you can by, wherever you listen to this, YouTube, Twitter, whatever, just subscribe and like, and then tell people about us. So we'll talk next week. I'm sure Trev might even have a mock draft for us next week. I'll talk to him, see if he can get one of those ready, and we'll see what the future holds for, starting next Wednesday. Iowa State plays Kansas and Houston on Saturday, and then right away again on Monday. So for our next show, we're going to see if Iowa State has fallen to number 10 in the country-ish, or if they're staying right there at number 5, or maybe even, I would even say if they would move, the rankings are going to be what they are on Monday, but if they would beat Kansas and then beat Houston, they're going to stay right there, maybe even jump a spot or two, depending on what happens with other teams. So Iowa State has a chance, and we're going to see if Otzelberger and the rest of the team can get it together and play Cyclone basketball and get Hilton Coliseum rocking on Saturday and Monday. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk next week.